Breaking news on the Dallas Cowboys is made possible by Magic Spoon. Get $5 off your first order at magicspoon.com/Cowboys. Dallas has made multiple roster moves, the ones we've been waiting for as players come off the COVID list. Several notable players head to IR, at least for the time being, and Dallas will sign some players as well. Let's break it all down for you. First up here, back from the COVID list, wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. He has returned, as has safety Damontae Kazee, along with defensive tackle Carlos Watkins. Now, that will leave the Cowboys with two players left on the list, at least for now, wide receiver Noah Brown and offensive lineman Connor Williams. Williams will return sooner, potentially as soon as tomorrow. Noah Brown went on the list earlier this week, so he's going to be out a little bit longer. I'm going to list him as questionable to return in time for Week 1. Now, to make room for those three players who returned, the Cowboys have placed 6 players on IR. Wide receiver Malik Turner, tight end Sean McKeon, offensive tackle Josh Ball, defensive tackle Neville Gallimore, and cornerback Kelvin Joseph. That is perhaps the most significant one, plus linebacker Francis Bernard. We will break down all of that in more in depth here in just a second. But first, look, we have done 6 videos in the past 48 hours for you guys here on the Dallas Cowboys Report. But the vast majority of you do not have notifications turned on. Let's get that changed, all right? Less than 20% or 21% of you actually have notifications set to all. When you first subscribe, YouTube defaults you to personalized. So what I want you guys to do is, if you want to be a part of the Noti Gain and get that notification set to your phone for every single video that we do, is go click the bell icon on YouTube and change it from personalized to all. That way you won't miss out on anything moving forward. Do that right now. Let's talk more in depth now about the significant, noteworthy, maybe a bit unexpected, we kind of mentioned it briefly in the past, move, which is Kelvin Joseph has been placed on IR for the Dallas Cowboys. What this means is that Joseph and the other 5 guys, who we'll go more in depth to here in a little bit, he's going to miss at least 3 weeks to start the season for the Cowboys. He is dealing with what's been termed a minor groin injury. But this does leave the Cowboys a little bit thinner at cornerback, at least for now. Trevon Diggs, Anthony Brown, Jordan Lewis are going to be your starters in Week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, leaving Deshaun Wright and Maurice Kennedy as your backups, which, look, honestly, as corner 4 and 5, it's actually not that bad of depth with the way that Kennedy has wowed so far in the preseason and the way that Wright has shown promise early on. But make no mistake about it, this is a bit of a disappointing start for Kelvin Joseph. I was hoping he was going to be able to make a quicker impact. Remember, life as a rookie corner ain't easy, guys. It's difficult. Unfortunately for Joseph, he missed some time in camp in the preseason due to COVID-19. Now is going to miss some time due to his groin injury. It's a disappointing start. By no means am I calling him a bust, but let's be honest, it is a bit of a disappointing start so far for the second-round pick out of Kentucky. So what is your panic level then over Kelvin Joseph? Get your votes in for me in the comments section. Rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you're not concerned at all, but it's still above a 0 since he is on IR. 10 being you're melting down and think he's a bust. It should not be a 10. It should be somewhere in the middle. This is the pinned comment on today's video, so go get your votes in. Let's mention now these other players and how it all plays into their position grouping. Malik Turner, foot. We'll see if he comes back. This could be a bit of an IR stash, but there is some depth there in case the Cowboys do with other injuries. So he's out for at least 3 weeks. Noah Brown remains on that COVID list. It'll be Cooper, Gallup, Lamb, Wilson, and mostly Brown once he returns. Tight end-wise, Dallas is thin at this position. Sean McKeon's on IR. Jeremy Sprinkle is on the practice squad. I would bet that he ends up being a game day call-up at least once early on to give the Cowboys some added depth until McKeon's able to return. Offensive line time. All right, Connor Williams should be back in time for week 1. Lael Collins still dealing with that stinger issue. We'll see if he practices on Sunday. Cowboys being cautious there. I am still a little bit concerned about that one, but he's expected to play week 1. I'm going to monitor throughout the week. Josh Ball placed on IR again, ankle issue. We'll see if he's able to return at some point this year, but the option is open. Defensive line time now. Look, Neville Gallimore's, this was expected. We knew that was going to happen. Maybe he comes back in early October, leaves the Cowboys with Oso Digizua, Carlos Watkins, Brent Urban, Quinton Bohanna, and then maybe Chauncey Golston gets some defensive tackle reps in some packages as he's was activated from the PUP list. He could not go on IR, by the way, quick aside here, because, I mean, it makes sense, right? In order to come back from PUP list, you got to pass a physical. So you can't pass a physical and then say, oh, yeah, now he's on IR. So it was either miss 6 weeks or go on the active roster for Golston. Linebacker Francis Bernard, not a major surprise. I was actually maybe more shocked he was carried through active roster, but because the Cowboys had players on the COVID list, allowed them a little bit more flexibility from that perspective. Now, today's show, as I mentioned, is powered by our friends over at Magic Spoon. If you were like me, I kind of stopped eating breakfast, you know? The healthy stuff did not taste good. Bran flakes are gross. I'm sorry. The tasty stuff was not good for me. Added a couple extra pounds. But I've cut some weight since I got started with Magic Spoon. And you can too if that's something you're trying to do. 13 grams of protein, 4 grams of net carbs, that's it, and 0 sugar. And it tastes absolutely incredible. So if you're trying to cut some weight and have some delicious cereal in the process, $5 off your first order at magicspoon.com/Cowboys. That link, by the way, will be in the comment section and in the description. Now, the numbers here, as the Cowboys are going to sign Corey Clement, as reported last night, the numbers right now on the Cowboys roster, by placing 6 players on IR and having 3 players only return from the COVID list, well, that leaves room for 3 guys. And we know which 3 that's going to end up being. Corey Clement is one of them. He has agreed to what will be a cheap deal with the Dallas Cowboys. They now have the roster spot officially open for him. He will slot in at RB3. Now, I don't think you're going to see much of anything from the offensive perspective of Corey Clement. And that's okay. He's not an elite running back. He had 21 carries last year as he continues his NFC East tour. He's played for the Eagles and the Giants, now with Dallas. But Clement's value, very simply, comes from special teams. That is what Corey Clement's going to do. This guy's got, I think it's almost 700 special team snaps in his career. He's going to be involved on kick coverage, punt coverage. He'll be on field goal units potentially as well. He will be able to do everything you look for a core special teamer. I don't think he's going to do much from a return perspective. Now, he's done it a little bit in the past. There's some added depth from there, but I still think Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson are going to be more of your core guys. Clement truly is a replacement for Rico Dowdle due to his hip fracture. So grade the signing for me. A, B, C, D, or F. How you feel about the Cowboys adding Corey Clement? I like the move. This is the type of player you add as your RB3. You don't go after a big name. You go after someone young and cheap and, most importantly, can be a core special teams player for you. That's why it's a good move by the Cowboys. It ain't sexy, but it's a good back end of the roster. At minimum, I'd say this is a B. Now, again, the math, hashtag math, 2 spots left open right now with 2 players still having to be moved once Noah Brown, Connor Williams come back from the COVID list. That leaves 2 obvious signings that will happen, whether it's today or tomorrow, probably today. Bryan Anger, who had been released briefly, is going to come back. That move was always a procedural move. You cut the vested veterans since they don't go through waivers, and then you have the plan, and the player knows this too, it's agreed upon, to re-sign because it's just a brief moment to make the numbers work on the roster. So Bryan Anger will re-sign very shortly, and so too Well, Jake McQuaide, the long snapper. I saw some comments like, who's the punter? It's still Bryan Anger. Long snapper is still Jake McQuaide. That change, or that move, was always going to be temporary. The Cowboys have done it in the past. It was just a roster manipulation technique that all NFL teams do, unless they're stupid. And the Cowboys are not stupid from that perspective. We do have one other practice squad move to announce here. That is Breeland Speaks, who did spend some time last year on the Cowboys practice squad, as he is, I would argue almost surprisingly, has returned to the Cowboys. So, with Speaks added, that brings us, I think, to 16 players, leaving spot or room for one more guy. I'll explain what I think the Cowboys are going to do here. First up, Ben DiNucci, Jaquan Hardy, Nick Ralston, Osiris Mitchell. Look, these guys we all mentioned on yesterday's practice squad video. It's available on the channel. Brandon Smith, Jeremy Sprinkle. The one that I'm going to put the asterisk by for now. Every other player on this list has been formally announced by the Dallas Cowboys. Ian Bunting was reported by Aaron Wilson of the Houston Chronicle. Patrick Walker of CBS Sports also mentioned it, but it hasn't been formally announced. Braylon Jones, offensive line. Isaac Alarcon, Justin Hamilton, Austin Failoi, Breeland Speaks as well. Kyron Brown, Deontay Burton, Darian Thompson, Tyler Coyle. That's 16 of the Cowboys' 17 spots. So here's my theory for how the Cowboys are going to juggle this. Connor Williams will be activated from IR, or from the COVID list, I think in the near future. In order to make room for Connor Williams, somebody's got to get cut from the active roster. I think whoever that ends up being, the Cowboys are going to try to get him down to the practice squad. You know, maybe it's an Azur Kamara, Bradley and Simi Fehoko might make some sense. So my suspicion here, and we'll see if I'm right or if I'm stupid, is when the Cowboys activate Connor Williams from the COVID list, they will release somebody, probably one of those edges, and Nair Kamara would be my guess. We'll see if that's actually the case there. They will try to get that player on the practice squad. I bet that Noah Brown, he might not be back in time for week 1 for the Cowboys. If that's the case, you have him on the reserve list through week 1. Then when Noah Brown comes back, you release somebody else, maybe Simi Fehoko, to try to get him down to the practice squad, barring a different injury. If you have to put someone on IR, and then you cut somebody else from that practice squad. Maybe you don't need 2 tight ends long term if Sean McKeon returns in the near future. So with that in mind, who do you want for that last practice squad spot that is still available? Get your votes in for me in the comments section. One last thing before we go, some number changes by the Dallas Cowboys. Trevon Diggs going back to his college number, number 7. Jerron Kearse takes over Diggs' old number. Jabril Cox goes to 14. I like it. Azur Kamara takes Jalen Smith's old number. He goes from 48 to 54. They were sharing numbers, Cox and Kamara were, by the way. And then Deshaun Wright goes from number 40 to number 25. Massive improvement there. 40 is a gross number. Garbage number for a corner. I hate it. It looks terrible. 25, though, that's some heat. Well done move there by Deshaun Wright. Stock up for him.